Is there evidence for animals, for example, dogs, going to heaven? Well, evidence for people going to heaven is pretty scarce. If we get right down to that. But on the assumption that people go to heaven, is there the possibility that animals can go to heaven? And there is I will say it is a definite maybe. Now, this is a complicated subject. This is a really complicated subject. And it's been debated through the centuries. However, there's been some very interesting work done on this. And very recently, actually. There has been some suggestions that if and let me put it this way, I don't take this. There's a not so serious argument that's made for animals going to heaven and a more serious argument for animals going to heaven.
Leopard boy said.
Now they got cats. They're the ones tormenting you in hell.
Cats keep coming in. Coming
out. Are you saying cats are the Armenians of the animal world? Keep going in and out.
I haven't decided yet. Changed my mind.
Dogs are the Calvinists. Cats are the Armenians. Yeah. So we don't want to make too light of this, but there is a not so serious argument for this and a serious argument. Now, the not so serious argument is the idea that heaven cannot be heaven if a pet, if your idea of heaven is incomplete without your pets. Okay. Now, at one level, this argument does appeal to one's emotion very, very strongly. You know, the whole idea that heaven cannot be heaven if you're not reunited with your pets. Okay. Well, you're not going to be necessarily reunited with all your family members either. So there are plausible objections to that say more emotional argument there. Now, on the other hand, we do know that when a pet is in a family, especially indoor pets, that they develop certain characteristics that they wouldn't normally develop when they're out in the wild. Like, for example, you got a rabbit, and rabbits that live in war and life have, it's eat or be eaten. That sort of it's not a good way to live. But you get a rabbit in your home, and all of a sudden, it starts developing very social characteristics. It communicates with you. It's got a language. It can feel guilt. It knows it's doing something wrong.
And it does it anyway.
And it does it. Sometimes it does it anyway. Sometimes it doesn't. Because it knows it's doing wrong. Sometimes it wants to do right. It's got a moral. How do I say it? A sense of morality, a sense of right and wrong. But at the same time, too, it doesn't have the moral responsibility. And that's because the traits are emergent. When you have an emergent trait like that, now you have a decent argument for animals having a kind of soul. And that more serious argument is, well, if it has a soul, that's something that survives into the afterlife. And that's a serious argument for the idea that maybe not all animals go to heaven, but certainly pets could. Because if they have emerged into having that sort of consciousness and self-consciousness, then they are a being that has at least limited sentience and the ability to perceive things in a reflective manner. Thus, that is something that would then be preserved into the afterlife. So I think that is a very weighty argument for the idea that some animals could go to heaven. Now, this then begets the question of what about other animals? Well, it's a big universe. Big universe. The idea of an afterlife for animals may not be restricted to heaven. It may also be somewhere else. So, there's also the potentiality that God has other plans for the spirits of animal kind. That there could be some other place other than heaven where the souls of animals, say, live out their eternity. So there's a lot of possibilities here. As I said, some I think are better than others. I think the idea of the emergent properties of animals, I think, is the strongest argument for animals being reunited with humans in the afterlife. And I think it's a good argument. I think the sort of it's not heaven without them. It's an emotional argument. It's not a very good argument, but it does have some sway. I don't deny that it is very emotionally appealing.